So the topic of today, I mean, it's really hard actually in today's world to not talk about COVID-19 at all. You know, yesterday my sister had her birthday. Yes, it's the same day as Koningsdag, King's Day, which still for me sounds really weird. I always want to say Queen's Day, Koninginnedag, because I grew up and we always had a queen. So, but now we have a King's Day, and that is on April 27. But that's also the birthday of my sister, and she is 1 year older than our king. So I think we have a special sister day. But anyhow, we had a big Zoom party, which was kind of nice. And we actually made an agreement to not talk about COVID-19. That's what I wanted to say. And we didn't succeed. We ended up with a lot of people still talking a little bit about COVID-19. And people asked, you know, I was the only one calling in from the United States, but there were people from Spain, Ibiza, and there were people from Portugal and other places. There was a flight stewardess who came back from a 3 days work, and she always flies between South Africa and then back to the Netherlands. I'm not sure if that's her only route, but that's the route she did. And we're all talking about, you know, trying not to talk about COVID-19, but nowadays it seems really difficult to not talk about COVID-19. And this is my sister's friends group, so not the family, but the friends group. To be honest, I don't know those people so well, so I was a little bit careful with going into the discussion, but one of the things that's actually is very related to the topic of today, and the topic of today is, can we at least agree to disagree, right? Which is a very common saying, and if you browse, I always do that. I go to Google, I browse the things that I want to talk about and see if there's maybe some current opinion about it, and lo and behold, you saw that there's a lot of writing about this topic. Can we agree to disagree? And also in the light of COVID-19. So we did not expect that one of the people in there was kind of a little bit in the conspiracy theory type of thinking. It was not one of these extremes as you sometimes see on Facebook, but you could see that everyone was kind of, well, if we would be all in one room, we probably would look at each other like, okay, we did not know she was thinking like that. So, and that I don't know her well, but that person is it's a very nice person. There's nothing wrong with that person, right? But and she very carefully expressed her opinion, and I think she meant it. She meant that there is, so you guys all believe that there is real COVID-19 and that we all have to stay in house. And she was kind of convinced that that was like a big conspiracy to keep us, for what kind of shady reason, all to keep us in our house. Now we can laugh about an opinion like that, or you can be very angry about it if you have colleagues or friends, and by now almost everyone has at least one or two people that they know by name who actually passed away from COVID-19. So I could easily see that people get angry about it because they totally disagree, of course, with that opinion. The remarkable thing is that we think that all these government leaders that seems not to be able to agree is what we talk about, but they can secretly agree to keep us all at home. All these world leaders who are completely fighting wars over all kind of things can secretly agree to keep us all at home. Not sure if those people who think about conspiracy theory think about those kind of things. But apparently that's that. So there was that person, but since she saw that kind of no one really reacted to it, she decided not to further engage in that discussion, not in that direction, which was fine. I would not be okay with it if she would. I would be okay with it if she would agree. I hear some background noise, guys. Can is that me? That cannot be me. Monique, can you mute your phone? Yeah, that's fine, no worries. So that was that. But earlier in that week, and that's why I decided actually to start talking about this. Earlier this week, I saw this whole, everyone is free to think what they think, by the way, but I saw this whole thing about the 5G. If you just know a little bit about technology, you kind of know that it is like really not very smart to believe that. But anyhow, that's okay if you believe that, and if not, send me a hate mail. Normally I say, please don't send me a hate mail, but please be free to send me hate mail, because in this case you can totally agree to disagree with me, or just, I don't mind if you actually completely disagree with me. But I saw a message from a person that I kind of followed on Facebook, and he's kind of he writes a lot about spiritual stuff. He wrote a book, and a friend of mine, also a dance friend actually, she years ago she advised me to follow this guy, and we actually talked a little bit over Facebook, and because she believed that lady believed that he and I should work together and do some workshops together on awareness and the rise of consciousness and stuff like that. And I thought that would be cool, and he's a little bit more known in the Netherlands than I am, so I must honestly say it would not be bad for me to work with that person together. At that time, my instinct actually reacted already like, this person does not want to even listen to what I have to say. And that's kind of weird, because, I'm published myself. And for someone who preaches raise of awareness and just have this openness, not even to want to engage in a discussion, that was kind of instigated by someone he trusted, which was my friend, was kind of like, So we were both wondering like, that's kind of weird that he kind of stonewalled us completely. And he said, no, my opinion is my opinion. I said, okay. And I tried to probe him. I said, is a rise of awareness, is that not like, we need to be a little bit more open in our opinion and also, but I didn't pick up on that, and he wrote kind of nice stuff, and then just like 3 weeks ago he had this really long post with all kind of apparently evidence about the 5G theory, which, I worked for a technology company, so I thought that was kind of weird. And I was not upset about it at all. It was just kind of weird, besides the fact that just spreading that type of news could be entirely very dangerous. So that's another thing, right? It is one thing to, share an opinion, and it's all good to have an open mind about everything and have open opinion, and I'm all good with that. But there is somewhere a line, and I don't know where that line is, guys, but there is somewhere a line when your opinion starts to be dangerous. And I cannot draw that line, to be honest, but I just want to say that a lot of people like myself, we often about, okay, we need to agree to disagree, we need to, everything is good, everyone needs to say their opinion, and that is a constitutional thing, right? It is by constitution we have the freedom of speech, but in that freedom of speech, there's a lot of responsibility. And so that's, you might think that Jean would go the other way, that we would say, say whatever you want. No, I don't think you can not say whatever you want, and I used to believe that, when I grew up, I used to believe that. You need to say whatever you want, and everyone needs to make their own choices. And so I ended up, not having kids yet, but I ended up to wanting to get married with my school sweetheart. Yeah, and what has that to do with this story? It actually has a lot to do with this story. And I'm a Catholic at that time, and I don't know if you know about these things, but if you wanted to get married as a Catholic, you had to go see the pastor. because he had to approve of that. And then you get, he sent a letter to the Pope, and the Pope would sign it off, and then you were allowed to get married as a Catholic. And so he said, well, in case there will be children, would you raise them as a Catholic too? I said, no, that I wouldn't do, because everyone has his own freedom, and they can pick that when they're 18. When they're 18, in the Netherlands, you can do whatever you want. You can change your sex, whatever you want. You can do that. But when you're 18, you can pick that. So, and I thought it was a really good opinion. And he said, that's interesting. He said, no, of course, Jean, everyone is free of his own opinion, but let me tell you about this. Would you teach them how to eat properly with silverware? In my case, I am Asian. We eat a lot with a spoon and fork, right? If you're from other parts of Asia, you eat with chopsticks, but we eat with spoon and fork. Or with knife and fork if you eat potatoes and meat and vegetables. So if your children have a free choice, would you just then not teach them how to eat with a spoon and a fork and just, leave it, let them eat the way they want until they're 18, and then they can eat with whatever they want? They can pick chopsticks, they can use their hands, they can do whatever they want. I said, no. Or they can just shove it in like a lot of people do, right? I said, no, that's kind of stupid. I said, oh, he said, that's stupid. Why is that stupid? I said, just a minute ago you said, if it comes to your own beliefs, you say people can make that choice when they're 18. I said, okay. So I was kind of a little bit like, this guy clearly, was trained to do this kind of discussions, and I was not. So I did not have a lot to say, but I must say that example stayed with me mostly if it comes to the freedom of choice and to teach people what you believe is right and wrong. And teaching someone what you believe is right and wrong does not mean that I oppose my opinion upon you. And that's a huge difference between sharing your opinion and opposing your opinion. And that could go both ways, right? So if I believe that in this case, and I'm sure that the people who believe that 5G caused the coronavirus, they are not online anymore, and that's fine. But if you believe that, that's your right. And if you want to share your opinion in Facebook, that is your right too. But if you don't think through what your consequences are of your opinion, maybe that's not so right. And if you put words in your messages that is almost like, everyone is stupid except us, I'm not sure if that's right either. And that's the same thing for me. I clearly don't think that, and that's not even a belief, but I don't think that the 5G whole thing is true. But I would not call you stupid for believing that. You have the right to believe that, but does that respect go both ways, right? Now, where can you then draw the line between when an opinion is dangerous and when it's not dangerous? Well, some of these networks, and so in the Netherlands, but in other countries too, some people actually started now to act upon that and started to burn down and take down antenna towers, which is really dumb, to be honest, to use that word, because there is not even a 5G antenna tower in the Netherlands. But okay, you might not have known that. So you want to take down those towers. That would mean that you take down communication. And if you take down communication, you put other people at risk. All right, so then you had an opinion, you put that into action, which is great, because Jean talks a lot about, if you take a decision and you don't put it into action, it's meaningless. But you gave it, you now oppose your opinion, by force upon other people. That starts to be wrong in my book, and I believe we need to be able to share that, right? So it's maybe not a political decision, and it's not a normal spiritual talk that Jean has, but spirituality has something to do with finding a morale in your life. And we are equipped with, hopefully, with a good set of brains where you can choose between what is morally right and what is morally wrong. We don't need any laws for that. Everyone has a sense of feeling that when I start to put other people in danger, that is morally wrong. Does that make any sense, right? I hope I have still some people left on the phone because I'm really on a spree today. So that's it. So that is then something that I come to a point. No, I cannot agree to disagree with you because I think you're really in the wrong. Does that make sense? And I have another example. There was actually a little bit more dangerous even than this. So at my first job, it's called the BOVEC, and there was a meat exporting type of a company, and there was and so we had a little administration, and I was hired there as a young guy, and we had a slaughterhouse, and there were like every day about 12. I still know the numbers, between 600 and 1200 porks got killed. Now I know Irene on the phone is now completely grossed out, like, oh, those poor little porks. And well, they're pigs, then there are pigs. Pork is when it's meat. I'm always making that mistake when I talk about these things. But anyhow, so you could see that is a slightly different type of people that work in that type of industry than you work in high technology that I used to work later. Now, it has nothing to do with those people, but I had to get used a little bit to that. They were raw, they were cursing a lot, and they were, physical, sometimes there were fights and all that stuff, they were raw people. But most of the time they were super good people, right? But it was also at the time that that extreme right was coming up in the Netherlands again. So that was bad. That was bad. And unfortunately, that was growing fast in that community too. But that community had all kind of, so it was really extreme. And there were various occasions when we, working from, management, that we had to step in and people would just shout at you. And since I was the only one with, was kind of from a different ethnic group, so they called me Chinese. And it was not because they hated me at all, because if you were a red hair, then you were the red guy. If you were tall, then you were the tall guy. So I never felt super insulted by it. It was just my nickname. And but it came to a point that someone that worked in the office of all places said, well, I don't believe that people like you, Jean, should be allowed in this country. I said, huh? So I said, wow, what? I didn't quite get it. He said, no. He was a very nice person, actually, and said, no. He said, I have nothing against you. I just have something against your race. I said, okay. I literally did not know what to say. He was such a nice person. He said it so nicely. And so, did I now have to agree to disagree? Well, that went a little bit too far with me. And I said to him, let's call him, let's not give him a name, but let's, So I said to this person, I personally like you so far, but I decide now not to have any other relationship with you, then I have to be in this office. And the person said, that's fine, we can agree to disagree. I said, no, we cannot agree to disagree, because this is where I draw the line. This is where I draw the line. I cannot agree to disagree on this point. So when I was preparing this, knowing that, this is years later, this is about 40 years later. Yes, that's how old I am. This is about 40 years later, and I was writing about, what to agree to disagree. I felt I had to do a little bit more work, because how do I know if I draw that line correctly? And who says that I cannot have an opinion and to not engage with someone? In Facebook, it's easy. You just defriend someone and done. right? That's clear, right? So done. But in this case, there was, well, Facebook did not even exist, by the way, but there was not even a computer at that time. Yes, that's how old I am. And so there was not a way for me to block him, and this guy was actually pretty nice to me normally. He just believed that the Netherlands, in this case, should be only for white people, and since I was not white, I should not go there, and if there was a way for me to put me out of the country, he would do so. He just said, no, from a person point of view, that doesn't mean I hate you. And so I was not I wish he would hated me. That was a little bit easier to agree with. I remembered that discussion when I was preparing to agree to disagree, and I said something must be going on there. Something deeper must be in there that I'm completely missing in here. And what I found, strangely enough, guys, is that that arguing in itself triggers something in us that we kind of like. And that's weird. It has something to do with our chemicals, and I can send you the articles around it, but I'm not going to, unless you ask me to, then I will. But there is something in us, that gives us a thrill to get angry about certain things. There is and arguing gives us that kind of, like, chemicals in us that makes us a little bit more exciting, because now we can fight a little bit. Yeah. So specifically, men have that a little bit more than women, as some research wants us to believe. But it has something to do with our, limbic system, where we want to fight a little bit. So sometimes we just want to go out there and be a little bit more aggressive. But we have evolved as people. Last week I wrote about that. And so we cannot immediately get a weapon and shoot someone down. So we start to argue a little bit more verbally, right? And there are different reasons why we do that. Sometimes that is just we're not, with all the excuses that I can make, and apologizing is sometimes we're just not educated enough, and we start to argue about things. Sometimes that has to do because we had a really bad day and we start to argue about a point, but actually it was because we were angry at our boss, and now we come home and we were not, man enough to talk to our boss, so now our wife started to talk to us and we became angry at her. That happens, right? But very strangely enough, there is also something in us that we kind of like to argue. Does that make sense? Is anyone here that says, I have that a little bit. I kind of like, I find an opinion that I don't agree with. Let me react to it. Right? So we all have that a little bit in us. I have a certain topics where I get hugely triggered by it. Other things I don't. But some topics, and if you want to know which one those are, in the area of injustice, in the area of racial discrimination, things like that, in the area of abuse, I get very quickly triggered with it. I very quickly want to reply to people. So I can actually get to that. So, but the question here, is that helpful to put that out there in the world? I typically don't think it is, but it doesn't mean that didn't stop me in the past to once in a while also share my opinion, right? So then you come down to the point, okay, what then does people mean with do we agree to disagree? And if you read my newsletter this week, then we talked a lot about, then I started to say, hey, the people that you love, do you always agree with the people that you love? No, of course not. Actually, with the people that we love, we often disagree, and that's perfectly fine. But also there, of course, you will find that some people draw a line if you feel that you are too far away, and it could be political or not. Then some people say, okay, I cannot live with this people because he has a completely different political opinion. And then you say, okay, is that weird? In the US, you will find it sometimes. Yeah, we have Democrats and Republicans. Now, there are enough houses where Democrats and Republicans live in one house. so that's not a big deal. And if that's true with religious belief, I don't think there are a lot of people who really believe in Christ and the other one believe in Islam and they live together. I think it's possible, but then they are very mellow in their thing. So it's maybe not so easy always to say, can we agree to disagree? Because could that cause that we actually come very mellow in the opinions that we form, which is not a healthy thing either. I think we need to become very strong in the opinions that we form, but we need to find a way to express them without putting other people in danger first, and secondly, with full respect of the other person. And that's where I think this today topic is about. Do we do that? I cannot change the other people, like the 5G people. I think some of them expressed it nicely, other people not so nicely. So I cannot influence the other people to do that better, but I can definitely look at myself and look in the mirror. What is my own behavior when I share my opinion, right? Do I do it for the argument's sake because I like the adrenaline and the other chemicals in me that makes me want to fight? Or am I so convinced that I cannot let go of my own beliefs? Or do I just share my opinion as an informative piece and other people can do something with it as they want to? That's where we need to be. So, agree to disagree? Yes, but there is definitely a limitation to that, at least in my opinion and some other people who write about this topic, because that could make us that we maybe not share our opinion in the way we want to share it. But if we only share our opinion to make sure that the other one takes the opinion too, you come to an older discussion that I had in the beginning of the COVID-19 is, think about it, we are in a democratic world, and in a democratic world we need to allow other people to have another opinion, right? And we need to do that with respect. That is the sign of freedom. Even if we got triggered, can I be sure that I don't do the same as the other person? Which I already said in some cases for me that is pretty hard, right? Okay, so that was that. That was the agree to disagree of today. I think we're about half an hour in the discussion, but I was fully prepared actually to be on Facebook Live and to ask someone to share a really strong opinion that they have nowadays and that I see on Facebook. By the way, I don't know if you notice, I'm very not so much on Facebook, and I stopped almost being completely on Instagram altogether. And one of the reasons is I just don't want to be triggered about all that stuff. Because I am. So I actually already found out that my nature is to argument. I want to argue. So I better not see it, because then I want to, or I send it to another friend. One of them is on the phone here. I then at least send it to someone that I think like, man, did you see that stupid guy? So I don't say it maybe then in public. I don't know how fair that is, but I notice that I get triggered a lot about it. So I have to do a lot of work in myself, to see how good I am in to agree to disagree in that area. So I rather, shut down the whole Facebook for those kind of people. But that would be a bad thing too, right? Because then I would believe that I know everything that I know about it. And everyone has his opinion. Some people, I am blessed that I know quite a few of medical people. If you hear their stories, that maybe give you a slightly different opinion about COVID-19. I happen to know someone actually who, works in the chemical industry to make hand sanitizers. If you hear those stories, you might get a slight of different opinion about COVID-19, right? And then I live in the United States, which is in the Bible Belt. And if you are in the Bible Belt, where I live is in the Bible Belt, there are actually groups that say, and I'm a believer of Christ, but they say, Christ will save us all, so you don't have to stay home. Okay, that's one way of looking at it. And I can't say they're wrong. I can say no one is wrong until I have utterly proof of what's right and wrong. Then we had this discussion with my group of friends in the Netherlands. They're all Dutch, by the way. So Dutch people typically, find any opportunity, I think, appropriate to tell Americans how stupid they are, because we all follow Donald Trump. Now, I'm not a big fan of him, but we voted for him democratically. And proven is actually that most presidents of the United States are not really stupid. And let me give you one example of a president that I thought was not the most cleverest president we had ever in the United States, and that was Mr. Bush. And I always believe, by the way, that you have to respect your leadership first and foremost, otherwise it becomes chaos in your country. So even if I didn't vote for Trump, he is still our president, right? So that's where, the respect needs to go first. That's what I believe. So you can send me hate mail right now. But lo and behold, what was broadcasted, at least in the United States, and I hope they do that in the Netherlands too, Mr. George Bush asked, I think it was about 15 years ago, he started to ask for fundings to prevent pandemics. Yeah, believe it or not. And there's a whole big topic. And he explained it, why this is not a matter of if, it's only a matter of when. And billions of funding went through his initiative. And he knew that this had to be done worldwide because it's a pandemic, right? So it had to be worldwide. Well, things happened around the world, and other things became more important, and funding disappeared from his initiative, and so there's only one guy who was in that audience who is now one of the leaders actually in the US to help us and steer us through these difficult times. So he stayed with it and picked up on it. So I would say be a little bit more careful with our opinions, because if you go back in history and you are really honest about the opinion of people, you might prove yourself very quickly wrong in these things. So it's a little bit arrogant to think that we're right or wrong. Who knows? 5G might be right. Who knows? I don't think it is, but who knows? Who knows? They might be right. As long as we can do it with full respect, and as long as we are very, very, aware of what our opinions can do in the world. They say the pen is mightier than the sword, and the tongue is sharper than any knife, and that is so true. Right, so I am blessed to be a best-selling author. So I hope that my book is doing something good. But books can also do something really bad. Right, so that's where I really want to stop. I think I always stop like 3-4 times before I really stop. But now I really stop, and I give the discussion over to the group. What do you guys think about what I had to say today?